Angela Rayner has resigned. That is the known. Aggie Chambre is with me, LBC's political correspondent. What are the known unknowns?
So we know that Angela Rayner will leave the government. That means her post as Housing Secretary and her post as Deputy Prime Minister. We don't know at this moment, although I have just in the last few seconds seen a report that she will also resign as Deputy Leader. We know that the Prime Minister has received the report from Sir Magnus, who's the independent ethics advisor. We don't know whether the Prime Minister sacked Angela Rayner after receiving that report or whether she did indeed resign. It's often quite difficult to work that out in the moment. But if it is right that she has not only resigned as Housing Secretary and as Deputy Prime Minister, but as also as Deputy Leader, then this is an absolutely massive moment. This is what Downing Street were trying to avoid all week, that deputy leadership contest, as well as losing his incredibly popular Deputy Prime Minister too.
That's crucial, isn't it? And to remind us why.
So that is crucial because she won that contest in 2020 to become Deputy Leader. But this is basically the worst possible time for Keir Starmer to have a deputy leadership contest, because it will mean that senior people within the Labour Party, probably cabinet ministers and possibly some embattled ex-cabinet ministers like potentially Louise Haigh, the former Transport Secretary, who is very, very popular within the party, they will probably run to be Deputy Leader. And how will they get the vote of the members who are pretty unhappy with the Prime Minister and the direction of the Starmer project? Well, probably could be a bit of a race to the bottom, criticising him, saying they will hold him to account. And that, I think, could really destabilise the project. So not only has he lost his crucial number two, someone who was genuinely feared by the Conservatives, the person who stood in for him at Prime Minister's questions when he wasn't there, the person who has an absolutely ginormous brief sorting out renters' rights, the workers' rights, this huge brief in housing, also his Deputy Prime Minister, and now paving the way, we think, if that report is correct, for him to have to oversee a deputy leadership contest.
Just waiting for the final kind of confirmations, and that will involve an exchange of letters, I think, traditionally, that will also be party to. What do we know about their relationship? Because he has been somewhat less generous with other colleagues who were facing questions. Some of the questions arguably quite similar, most obviously probably Rashonara Ali and the homelessness minister brief clashing with her role as a private landlord. What do we know about the relationship between the two people?
Well, I think that's a really interesting question, because people have been saying to me all week, people within government as well as Labour MPs, if Angela Rayner was anybody else, she would have gone on Wednesday morning. She would have gone when she said she had paid the wrong amount of tax by £40,000. She would have gone at that point. And indeed, I don't believe there has been any other situation where there's been a public scandal involving a minister in Sir Keir Starmer's cabinet where they haven't had to go. You mentioned Rashonara Ali, Tulip Siddiq, Louise Haigh, Andrew Gwynn too, just to name a few. Yeah. They've all gone pretty quickly, bar Tulip Siddiq. I think Rashonara Ali went on the same day too, Louise Haigh, same night, Andrew Gwynn, actually before the story even dropped. And this was different. Now, this was different because of those reasons that I've already given about the fact that it's going to make that deputy leadership contest very, very difficult. It is also the fact that she will be a very difficult and dangerous, or could be at least a difficult and dangerous enemy on the backbenches.
Do you think that's likely?
I think it's possible. I think there are parts of the Starmer project that I think she's probably not a massive fan of, and I think if things come up, then I think she will criticise. If you think back to Louise Haigh, she was pretty quiet straight after being sacked, and then the welfare vote came up and she was one of the people who came out publicly, talked about it in public, and I think that rankled with some ministers. And I think you may have the same situation with Angela Rayner. You may not. She may remain completely loyal from the backbenches, but if she doesn't like the direction, she may. And she was somebody until probably yesterday afternoon who was very much seen as the front runner to take over from Keir Starmer at some stage.
Is that over completely? It's just not a case of sit tight for 2 years and come back?
It could be. And
if Starmer were to ever step down, there's nothing to stop her running again for the leadership. But this, and I mean, you know, supporters of the Labour movement and of Angela Rayner are not actually going to be that spooked by unless there's something extraordinary in this ethics advisor's report. It doesn't necessarily kill off her leadership ambitions, but it certainly sets them back a lot.
I think that's right, and I think you know James as well as literally anyone, that politics moves so quickly and people forget things very, very quickly. It is completely possible that she will be able to go to the backbenches and return in some form and run to be Labour leader. But there are people that have said to me this week as well, how hungry are you for Labour leader if you buy a flat in Hove, hundreds of miles away from your constituency? Did she ever really want it? Other people say, of course she wanted it. This is what she's been working for her entire political life. But I do remind those people too, in 2020, she did not stand to be Labour leader. Lots of people surprised at the time. And there are people who think actually she just doesn't really want it. So this could set back, I think this will set back her leadership ambitions if indeed they are there. But at this stage, we don't really know exactly how this is going to play out, and we don't know indeed when there'll be the next Labour leadership contest.
Any prospect of Andy Burnham coming back? I mean, he'd have to get a seat in the... Would he have to be in the House of Commons to be deputy leader of the Labour Party?
He would have to be a member of the House of Commons to be deputy leader.
Are you sure?
I'm saying that, so yes. Well, so I'm sure because I had a conversation with somebody this week we had a conversation about whether Andy Burnham might return to the Commons to run to be Labour leader, and I said, would he have to be an MP? And they said, yes, of course. So I think it is the same. I'm pretty willing to say that it is the same. So I think unlikely he would be able to run for deputy leader just on the time frame. But there are live conversations about whether Andy Burnham may return to the Commons.
I mean, we've spent days now not knowing what's happened, but formulating, not so much you, because you're a proper journalist, but formulating pungent opinions on what should happen if such and such has. And we still don't actually know. What we do know is that she's gone from government. We don't know for certain, or we do. No, we don't know for certain that she's gone as deputy leader of the party, or has that been confirmed? These are two different things. One is elected by the membership, and even though it sounds the same, deputy prime minister is appointed by the prime minister.
Yeah, and Harriet Harman, when she was deputy leader, was never actually deputy prime minister,
yes,
so it can be the case.
Exactly that. And it creates this sort of curious... I guess this is what I mean by not knowing exactly what has happened. It may be that she has had enough. It may be that this week has taken such a toll on her. Laurie Magnus has found opacity. It's not like a massive guillotine, smoking gun type scenario, but neither is it. She's absolutely in the clear. The only way I could see her surviving today was if the independent ethics advisor had come out and said she is absolutely in the clear. This could have happened to anybody. Anything less than that, I suspect that she would have independently decided to go rather than waited for Keir Starmer to make a decision about what he was going to do in those contexts.
That's interesting. I think lots of people thought the opacity was actually the most likely outcome of his report, and he was going to say she hasn't breached the ministerial code, and I should say at this moment we're still waiting for those letters to drop. She hasn't breached the ministerial code, but she should have taken more care on X, Y, Z, which gave him enough political room on either side to say she can stay or she can go. But as you say, she may well have thought this is enough. And watching her interview with Beth Rigby on Sky News on Wednesday morning, it was obvious that this had taken a huge personal toll on her already, and that was before 3 more days of intense coverage of this.
So who are Keir Starmer's biggest allies now in Cabinet?
Good question. So there's...
I ask them occasionally.
Always. So there's people like Shabana Mahmood, who is the Justice Secretary. She is seen as a big ally. She, I think, is one of the people who may well run to be deputy leader, if indeed there is a vacancy. People like Pat McFadden, and of course, I mean, it would be ridiculous to not mention Darren Jones, who is now officially his number 2 in Downing Street. So people like that. There's also the kind of the Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, Peter Kyle, Science Secretary gang there. They were seen as quite close. And of course, Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor. Now they have had a reasonably strained relationship, I think it's fair to say, over the struggles with the economy, and he's now bolstered his economic firepower within number 10. But I think he does have allies across the cabinet.
Who'd be a real dark... I mean, could Wes Streeting run for deputy or something like that?
Yes, he could. I mean, I think it's reasonably likely that anyone in cabinet could run to be deputy leader because it would boost their profile. I think that the interesting question, as well as who are his allies in cabinet, who his allies in parliament, interesting because he just still, and we've talked about this before, does not have that power base within MPs, within the backbench Labour MPs in Parliament. And it'll be really interesting to see whether this does lead to a reshuffle, who's elevated, who's not elevated, and what happens to those very, very ambitious backbenchers who were really hoping that they were going to get a job and actually haven't managed to get a job.